Hey, what's up, you guys? Bloody Jacob here to bring you my weekly review of The Walking Dead on AMC. This week we've seen Season 7, Episode 3, which was called The Cell. And I really like this episode. I feel a little bit weird saying that, though, just because of the pure torture we've seen of Daryl in this. But it was a really well done episode for sure. Last week's episode, centered around, introduction to the kingdom and as well as Ezekiel and, Carol and Morgan's perspective on all of it and such. That was a alright episode. I do like it better now than I did when I first seen it. But just the characters involved, especially, I'm not a big fan of Carol, and although Ezekiel, good actor behind him, I'm just not as interested in that as I am with this. And with this, we got a really good look at Dwight's character, a little bit more insight into his motivations. And then Jeffrey Dean Morgan's Negan so far, you gotta hand it to him. I know there's fans of the comics already are kind of entertained by the villain or the antagonist on screen. And I know there's people who have just watched the show that probably just want him dead already, right? Want Shiva to get him or something. I've looked into the comics and such, and I know Jeffrey Dean Morgan as an actor. I love him as an actor, especially from his work on Supernatural. So I'm just naturally entertained by him too. So it's like a weird mixed bag for me as well. I want Daryl to pull like a Rick and just bite his throat out. And at the same time, he's just a really good presence on screen, at least for the viewer's perspective. He's just really fun to watch and still somehow interesting, despite him supposedly having just this one mindset about how he wants things run and such. But yeah, I really like this episode. To start off in a little bit of a different way that I didn't really expect. With the opening montage, we see Dwight sort of like his daily routine in a way, really. You get this montage as sort of this upbeat, sort of a childish type of music plays, which I thought was pretty fun. We just see him like dealing with some of the different random people in the sanctuary, and how he sees some of them like having a disagreement or a confrontation or something, and he takes supplies from that particular set of people, to punish them. And then he gets to make himself a sandwich. He gets pickles and different things like that, and like an egg and things like that. He seems to enjoy that. It seems to actually get a genuine smile out of him. But then, of course, Daryl, meanwhile, who's being held in just a single room or this cell, he's fed a dog food sandwich on sourdough, I guess. And when we first see Daryl, he is, just stripped naked. He's, no clothes. He's just forced to sit in there, I don't know how many days on end now. But just continuing, the only times he gets any, light in there is when, Dwight or someone else opens it for maybe a handful of seconds. Of course, with, Negan trying to continue to break Daryl. Then we have Dwight's, I wasn't sure if his girlfriend or wife, but it is his wife, Sherry. She tries to talk to Daryl a little bit when he is brought into the doctors or their doctor that they have, and it seems like she is testing for pregnancy. And I don't know if from Negan or yeah, probably Negan, right? But it's negative for now. And then we had these people who are basically just thrown into the middle of these walkers who are chained together, and they're just kind of forced to fight. Dwight sort of tells Daryl that he can be them, like me or them. Who do you want to be? All depends on where you psychologically choose to plant and settle yourself. And we'll talk more about that a little bit later into the review. And then we had Dwight, he also tells Daryl just to kneel, just to finally just give up and just give in to Negan's way, Negan's order of things, his new world order, so to speak. And Dwight said he eventually kneeled. He defied Negan for a little while, but even he did it. And Daryl, he's still kind of standing his ground on it. He's still remaining, somewhat defiant, or at least not accepting of what Negan wants him to be, really. And then we had Negan asking Dwight about Daryl. He says, some people are, just harder to break than others. Daryl for sure is one of them that's, you're not really going to be able to, you're going to really have a really tough time getting to, if at all. And, of course, Daryl being arguably the toughest from, our surviving group, makes sense. And Negan's taken a special interest in Dwight, though. Not Dwight, but Daryl. Just because of Daryl's reserve and willpower, really, I think. And Negan just finds him interesting, a little bit different, maybe. And Negan, he offers Dwight women, open hour, or happy hour with pussy and stuff like that. And of course Dwight doesn't really want to get into it, probably because he doesn't really want to go even deeper into Negan's ways himself, but also because he probably still does have an attachment to Sherry despite everything that's happened. And Negan sort of mocks his dick. He says, is that thing even still work down there, or is it because of course the bite that Eugene took out of it back in season 5 when Denise was killed. So that was kind of it was a fun scene. We have Dwight on the road. He's we find out he's going after one of these stragglers, or one of these people who has abandoned the saviors and Negan. And we get this falling zombie from one of the bridges. It almost lands on Dwight after the motorcycle actually breaks down, apparently, or something goes wrong with it. Then we had Daryl. He actually tries to escape. He actually manages to get the door open, and he makes his way out. He's able to sneak his way through the halls, and he gets these set of motorcycles. But before he's able to, see if there's anything he can do with them, Negan's men and Negan himself surround him. And I was a little bit nervous there. Again, I know they're not going to kill Daryl at this point. I didn't think they were going to kill him in the premiere. But, still was, pretty nervous, seeing him going through the halls as he did. But if anyone could pull it off, it'd be Daryl, right? But, Daryl's not going to get away this quickly. Let's see. I kind of lost my place in my notes. But, yeah. Negan tells Daryl about, sort of his options. We see the line from the trailer, there is no door number 4, this is the only way. And, sort of the same thing that's sort of drilled into Daryl, and Daryl's in our heads throughout the episode. There's no door number 4. And, he can basically keep doing what he's doing, or, live like a king, as we see Negan reiterate a little bit later into the episode. Again, despite Daryl's defiance, Negan still seems to have a special sort of fascination with, again, his willpower and his, reserve, really. Probably Daryl's held out longer than most, if not everyone else. Negan has sort of broken in over the course of the apocalypse. And of course we have Sherry. She tells Daryl that he just has to go back, no. She says that her and Dwight actually chose to go back, which we hear more about at the end of the episode. But, which I found to be pretty interesting. And she says, she apologizes for taking his stuff. She, references back to when Daryl said they'd be sorry they, took his stuff and went the other way against him. And now she is, everything they've experienced, her and Dwight. And then, probably one of the best scenes of the episode, we see Dwight. He does manage to get a hold of the guy who, abandoned the sanctuary, and this guy's just really broken. He doesn't care if he lives anymore. He just, there's nothing left for him. We find out he had a wife and such like that himself, and at this point she's dead. Who knows what Negan did to her beforehand? And he just sort of, plays on a sliver of humanity that Dwight still might have, because a lot of these people we find out are probably people who have just been broken in by Negan, or at least most of them. They're probably a good handful good handfuls of just twisted bastards that side with Negan, but at least Dwight, this guy, and probably some others, they've just been damaged too much, and they just have nothing left, no like will to go, keep going. And this guy sort of plays on Dwight's feelings about that, about his wife, what happened, about Sherry, what happened with her, and how they just all align with Negan because out of like fear and desperation, really, they need someone to go to or something to get behind to, just get out of all this. And the only reason they do is because they're in a world like this is. I'm not really putting this the right way. I'm not really giving the dialogue justice or anything. But you actually see Dwight, he sort of, we see some cracks in his, Negan loyalist armor. Which I found to be pretty interesting and really good acting from Austin Amelio, who plays Dwight. And, the guy just wants to die at this point. He gets on his knees, he says for the last time, until Dwight, sort of, as Negan's system threatens to dig up his wife's corpse and feed it to the crows or something like that. And so, this causes the guy to stand up again, then Dwight does shoot him. And at first I thought it was in the head. I actually thought Dwight was sort of like mercying him. But we see the zombified guy later, and back in the fenced-off area and such. So Dwight's still going on with what Negan wants, but you could tell it was affecting Dwight with what the guy was saying. And I found that to be really interesting. Dwight is, if you read the comics, he's sort of like a middle-of-the-road character as far as a hero or villain or whatever. But I think the show's really portraying that pretty well so far. Sort of his struggle and his perspective on everything that he's been put into. I think it's really well done. Let's see. Dwight and Sherry, they do have a conversation when he gets back. Dwight still thinks he made the right choice. And Daryl, he's shown this photo of this, someone's bashed in head. I couldn't see it that clearly, but I think it was probably Glenn's. And Daryl just sort of breaks down overall, of course, all this guilt, being carried with him, which has been talked about all over, social media. Is Daryl to blame for Glenn's death? And, yes and no. Maybe Negan wouldn't have killed another one of them if Daryl hadn't, punched him in the face. But at the same time, you gotta understand Daryl's actions. Just the emotion, the adrenaline of all what was going on. Someone would have done something like that. So I think it makes sense. You gotta understand how Daryl felt there, how everyone felt. But of course this just, haunts Daryl, and just seeing that just breaks him down. He actually does cry, and we see Dwight, he's sort of on the other side of the door, sort of listening to him, and you can tell Dwight does still feel, as the guy said, And then we have Daryl, he's brought into Negan's room, which of course has like a carpeted floor. They also had a, working TV, or at least, they had, VCR or something put in an old show or something like that. I don't know. But Negan tells Daryl Dwight's story. Tells him how he wanted to marry Sherry's sister, but she was killed, as we seen last season. And then Dwight eventually came back to him and begged for forgiveness. And that's when Negan burned his face with the iron and decided to, marry Sherry because she's hot, right? Of course, just to stick it to Dwight even more, of course, if you read the comics, Negan takes on multiple wives. And, of course, just shaming Dwight in front of Daryl. And Negan offers him all this. He says he can live like a king. He can have this type of room and not live like shit anymore. He asks Daryl if he's just being silent because he's just taken back by all this awesomeness. But Daryl, he still remains defiant. Negan asks him what his name is. As most of his people do reply, they call themselves Negan too. Because Negan is everywhere, right? But Daryl still, says his name is Daryl. And Negan seems a little bit frustrated, but at the same time, it seems like Negan's still getting a kick out of it. And, Dwight takes Daryl back to the cell, and Daryl says he understands Dwight's choice to come back. Why he went back, because he had someone, and he was probably thinking of Sherry when they were on the run, and, at least if he brought Sherry back. Maybe they should have a chance to live instead of being out on the road, perhaps. And Daryl saying he doesn't have anyone with him right now. He doesn't have to think about anyone else's sake but himself, and he probably doesn't really care too much about himself at this point. But yeah, really good episode. I enjoyed this one quite a bit, actually, but I'm looking forward to next week, finally getting back to Alexandria, seeing how everyone else is coping. It looks like it'll be Negan's first visit, sort of a supply collection, so that should be really good, too. But yeah, I really, really like this episode. I'm giving it, between like an 8.7, 8.8, I think. I really liked it. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, subscribe. I'll catch you guys next time. Next video I'll be doing is probably an updated top 10 favorite characters list for The Walking Dead, so look forward to that. And yeah, peace.